So welcome everyone.
Welcome.
Let's start. So again, just to serve as a reminder for all of us, not that we have forgotten. So we are in the middle of Savitri sessions, but we are going through Ashwapati's experiences in detail, trying to just read about it, understand it more closely. And that's why when we were going through Savitri's lines, we thought of going through the release from the subjection of body and the release from subjection of heart and mind and the release from the ego, which is described as by Sri Aurobindo in the Synthesis of Yoga. So this time we have been reading and reflecting upon the release from the subjection of body, and we are on the page, on page 345 for those of us who have something else, hard copy of Synthesis of Yoga. So as far as I could see from the last video, secondly, with regard to this paragraph we had touched upon, and today we can take up a little further. So yes, starting from end of page 345, finally the mind will come to know the Purusha, starting from here. So anyone who feels ready can maybe read it aloud for all of us.
Yeah, Monica, I'll read.
Okay, Shardaji, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Finally, the mind will come to know the Purusha in the mind as the master of nature, whose sanction is necessary to her movements. It will find that as the giver of the sanction, he can withdraw the original fiat from the previous habits of nature, and that eventually the habit will cease or change in the direction indicated by the will of the Purusha. Not at once, for the old sanction persists as an obstinate consequence of the past karma of nature until that is exhausted. And a good deal also depends on the force of the habit and the idea of fundamental necessity which the mind had previously attached to it. But if it is not one of the fundamental habits of nature has established for the relation of the mind, life and body, and if the old sanction is not renewed by the mind or the habit willingly indulged, the change will come. Even the habit of hunger and thirst can be minimized, inhibited, put away. The habit of disease can be similarly minimized and gradually eliminated, and in the meantime, the power of the mind is set right. The disorders of the body, whether by conscious manipulation of vital force or by simple mental fiat, will immensely increase. By a similar process, the habit by which the bodily nature associates certain forms and degrees of activity with strain, fatigue, incapacity can be rectified, and the power, freedom, swiftness, effectiveness of the work, whether physical or mental, which can be done with this bodily instrument, marvelously increased, doubled, tripled, decuplet. So, Monica, this anyway we will come from the beginning, but even the habit of hunger, previous sentence, yeah. The fundamental necessity which the mind has previously attached to it. But if it is not what, I'm not able to understand that. Anyway, we'll come from
Okay.
the...
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I don't know, it's first of all, it's really marvelous to come upon such words again and again. Every time it's always a magic to read these words because in such detail, the process of yoga, I don't know, it's really very detailed. And it's not that all of us would resonate with it because we have been practicing it. And of course, we have not become yogis, but this is what we are trying when we are stepping back from our previous non-beneficial reactions, the way of working. So let's read it again and then finally the mind will come to know the Purusha in the mind as the master of nature. So right now, how we usually live is like, now it's my meal time. Now it may be 2 o'clock. I have to eat food. If I don't eat food, I get headache. So we have become a slave of the nature of body. The body is set into a system, and if I skip my meal, I just fall in the sense in some kind of a state which is of a disharmony. So then right now what has happened as the Purusha has given, so this we were reading in Savitri earlier that Purusha said that okay, the pact between Purusha and Prakriti, Purusha said that so long as the consciousness is not in front, like I don't know myself as consciousness, Prakriti will be the dominant one. And that is what we see happening. When in our ignorance, we learn through our experiences, life happenings. It's not that we are conscious that I have to take everything as a growth of consciousness. No, we are not. We don't know ourselves who we truly are. So what happens? Life situations come. A disease would come, a broken relationship would come, some challenge will come, some failure in respect, name, fame will come. So through life experiences, wisdom comes and ripening comes. Then I begin to question who am I truly, if I'm lucky in this very life. So this is a pact. Why this happens? Because this is a pact that before I fully know myself as consciousness, Prakriti is having the dominant hand. Why? Because this was the pact between Purusha and Prakriti, who are one, the two who are one. And the Purusha said, yes, you are the dominant one. You play the dominant role. The experiences in life, happenings in life, thoughts, feelings, body sensations, this is all Prakriti. And then he said, I will be the supernumerary, if we remember the word that came in Savitri. Supernumerary means that if there is a role play happening, there are first a couple of characters which are the main characters, and then at the back there are dancing fellows, who are like, nobody sees them really. So he said that Purusha agrees to be the supernumerary, that I'll be in the back. Just like when we are watching the movie, our attention rarely goes on that, oh, there is a screen there. All the time we are focused on the images that are coming in the movie, the story of the movie. But without the screen, the movie cannot happen. But rarely are we aware of the screen. So screen is very happily being ignored. It is happy to be ignored. So that's how Purusha gave his sanction that let me get entangled, let me get lost, seemingly lost in the movement of Prakriti. And that is what we are trying to do through all these practices of mindfulness or, stepping back. That sanction that had been given to the Prakriti to play the dominant hand, that sanction I take back and I detach myself. Now I disentangle. I know myself as the witnessing consciousness. So finally, the mind will come to know the Purusha in the mind, the witnessing consciousness, as the master of nature. That it's not that the witnessing has no power. It is the power of witnessing through which it is the power of witnessing through which it gave the sanction that okay, I am ready to lose myself. Now this is very interesting, when we are actors, for example, Bollywood actors, or we are playing role plays, theater. An actor who is very confident of himself, very, very secure in himself, he would not mind taking a backstage role because he knows who he is. So there is no point of insecurity that, oh my God, I'm not seen. So, but the sanction is coming from the Purusha, that it says that I am happy to be ignored. So now, as the witnessing Purusha gains stature within, because we are doing this practice of stepping back, knowing ourselves as the witnessing awareness, now it is seen as the master of nature whose sanction is necessary to her movement. And that's what Mother has said through various little anecdotes, that Mother said that it is for Lord's delight that I play. It is the delight of the Purusha for which the play is happening. If not for the sanction from the witnessing consciousness, the consciousness itself, that losing itself into the movement would not happen. It's for the purpose of the play. And this we can also see when we are little children, how parents are very happily playing hide and seek, with the little children, and they are, they are allowing themselves not to be seen, so that they can give the child the joy of being seen. Hiding, then getting caught, hiding, then getting caught. So it is for that play that this hiding is there. But for us, it becomes a trouble because then we suffer. So it will find that as the giver of the sanction, he can withdraw the original fiat from the previous habits of nature, and that eventually the habit will cease or change in the direction indicated by the will of the Purusha. Now, this is what I relate with, and more additions and reflections are welcome, but I am understanding it as that right now I am a slave of my patterns, the way I think, the way I feel, the way I perceive this world as reality. I'm a slave. Now, as I become to know myself as the presence of awareness, I am withdrawing the sanction to be lost in those non-beneficial patterns. So when the pattern comes, I'm becoming conscious of it. I look at it and I say, now I don't feel like walking that road anymore. So we step back. So now what is he saying? It will find that as the giver of the sanction, he can withdraw the original fear. So now I can take a step back. I can say, no, I'm sorry. I'm not interested in following that harmful pattern anymore, because now I'm becoming conscious of myself as consciousness. So this empowers us, to take this step back, that I was the one who was giving fuel to be identified with the ego consciousness, and now I take it back. I don't want to give it fuel. So it can withdraw the original fiat from the previous habits of nature, and that includes all the bodily habits that we have of hunger, of timely meals, and everything that we have. So first we need to be disciplined, and then we have to be non-sticky to the discipline. Not that if I don't have a meal at that time of the day, I will have a headache, or what will happen. So we become like that. So first we have to put ourselves into a discipline, and then be non-sticky to that discipline. So previous habits of nature, I can withdraw the sanction, I can step back, not to follow them all the time. That eventually the habit will cease. Now, because I'm not giving it power, there is no one who is fueling that older pattern which has now become non-beneficial. It doesn't help me. It is a poison. So when I stop to fuel it, or follow its dictates, then eventually the habit will cease. I don't go that road anymore. Or change in the direction indicated by the will of the Purusha, or whatever I feel beneficial, that okay, not this way, but this way seems beneficial. So self-mastery, you see, one is able to steer oneself. Not at once. Now, this is what we were discussing also in the morning, where Sham had asked one question, that what do I do? The mind slips again and again, and it tells me that I'm unworthy, I'm not fit enough. So we don't have to get frustrated. Why? Because it will not stop at once. It's like you throw a ball very strongly. In physics, we have all read momentum. There is something called momentum. When you throw a ball running, it's in time that it completely comes to a halt. Through friction or through the ground, that it is attaching itself to. So not at once. Immediately the habit won't cease. The sanction won't work that powerfully. Not at once, for the old sanction persists. Because now this we can relate with what we study with Jetsunma, that if we walk on the same road again and again, we create a new way. And if now I want to create a beneficial habit, every time I have a moment where I can either go the wrong way, thinking way, wrong feeling way, wrong habit, or maybe now stop going that wrong way. So I am now taking a new road on which still there is a lot of grass in the forest. The road has not been made. So he says that the old sanction persists as an obstinate consequence of the past karma of nature. What, for example, can be my past karma? I have walked on that road so many times. So by default, it is a slippery slope for me. I have made that a slippery slope. Why? Because I have walked on it so many times. So the moment I am standing on a crossroad, which is not at all right now appearing as a crossroad even, immediately the easiest is fall down the slippery slope. Easiest. Why? Because the road is made. The difficult one, where we need effort, is pause. And although this is very easy, but I know where it takes me, so let me take a new road. This is what we listen when we study with Jetsunma. So, not at once, for the old sanction persists as an obstinate consequence of the karma of past karma of nature until that is exhausted, right? So, until that is exhausted means now on the old slippery road, grass grows up again. So that there is no road anymore. Now I don't even think of walking that road. So it gets exhausted. And a good deal also depends on the force of the habit. This is what we were sharing, that the ball is thrown. Force, how strongly you believe that habit is important for you. How strongly you think that, yes, this kind of thinking, vicious thinking, and these kind of feelings are going to get me something, how much promise they hold for you. So the force of the habit and the idea of fundamental necessity, that without this kind of thinking, this kind of feeling, or this kind of a bodily pattern, I just can't survive. If that kind of a intensity is there, then it will, of course, take more time. So that's what he's sharing, that it depends a good deal also on the force of habit, how strongly I am attached to it, and the idea of fundamental necessity which the mind has previously attached to it, that if not for this, I will die. Many a times we, associate ourselves to such habits where we associate very, very strongly. That अगर बेटी नहीं मिली तो बस पता नहीं क्या हो जाएगा भाई भैया बेटी नहीं मिली I'm just taking a trivial example, but it's not trivial actually. For some of us it can be very strong. कॉफी पियेंगे तो इसी क्वालिटी की कॉफी पियेंगे, इतने टेम्परेचर पे पियेंगे. So all these habits, which we think that we fundamental necessity for us, that we can't survive without that thing being provided. So if I still think that it is a fundamental necessity for me, then it will take more time, for me to completely let go of that habit. But if it is not one of the fundamental habits nature has established for the relation of the mind, life, and body, and if the old sanction is not renewed by the mind or the habit willingly indulged, then eventually the change will come. Okay? So again, very important, that the habit, if it is not willingly indulged, the moment I see the older habit, the non-beneficial pattern rising up again, I take a pause. I don't listen to its dictates. I don't follow the pattern again. Why? Because I don't want to. It doesn't uplift me. It doesn't elevate me. It takes me down. Why would I do that? So that mastery begins to come, that you begin to really, I would say, in other words, also take good care of yourself. That let me take good care of my being. Keep it sorted, organized, unentangled, uncomplicated, simple. So and it is, the sanction is not renewed by the mind. So like we have a tenant and then the lease has to be renewed. That okay, you are a good tenant, you can stay maybe a couple of years more. You don't feel like you will take the property along with you. So we renew the sanction, right? So if the mind does not renew the sanction, that enough, you may have served talking to the pattern or thought pattern or the feeling pattern or the bodily habit, that you may have served me till now, but thank you, and maybe now I need something else. So letting that older pattern go, not renewing the sanction, and not willingly indulging into it, then he says, then eventually the change will come. So I really found it so very powerful and clear and crisp. So Sadaji, is it covered what you were asking?
Yeah, Monica. Yeah, now I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
So when I read, it was very confusing. But, after that, and you gave that, the ball example. And that also made me understood, the previous sentence. But can I read it once again, this sentence?
Why not?
But if
Uh-huh.
not, one of the fundamental habits nature has established for the relation of the mind. So this means you are already attached to some habit in the mind. That is what he is trying to say. Can you please tell me again? Yeah.
Okay. But if it is not one of the fundamental habits nature has established for the relation of mind, life, and body, so I believe that here he is referring to, like, there are some joints in a system. If we take off that joint, the machine will fall apart, right? And then there are some joints which, if we loosen up or take away, the machine is still together as an aggregate, right?
Okay.
So I feel that in this particular one which you are asking, this one, just this one, but if it is not one of the fundamental habits nature has established for the relation of mind, life, and body. So I believe that this one, I may be wrong, but I believe, and others are welcome to comment, this is referring to how the nature keeps the aggregate together.
Okay.
So that is a fundamental necessity, isn't it? Right? That I know myself as this being, this mind, these thoughts, these feelings, this body consciousness, right? So that is a fundamental necessity which nature has given me, and that is why Mother says that there is a difference between egoism, which has to be dropped off, and the necessity of just the ego. Ego is the self. the collection, the aggregate. So that's what I see, that if it is not that fundamental joint which nature has put to keep us together, and if then he talks about the other things, that if the old sanction is not renewed by the mind or the habit willingly indulged, then eventually the change will come. So meaning that when it is one of those fundamental habits that nature has put in place, then you can't get rid of it.
Okay.
You know? Because otherwise the machine will break apart, the system will break apart. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I understood, but there could be definitely more.
But beautiful example, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you for us.
Simple examples will, always we can remember it. We can get it connected so easy.
Yeah. So anyone else, if anyone wants to add on anything, please welcome. I'm just reflecting upon it together, and there's nothing concrete. So yeah, definitely there are more things which we'll learn through our own insights and through more reflections. Okay, so I'm assuming nothing at the moment at this. So taking it further, even the habit of hunger and thirst can be minimized, inhibited, put away. The habit of disease can be similarly minimized and gradually eliminated. And in the meantime, the power of the mind to set right the disorders of the body, whether by conscious manipulation of vital force or by simple mental fiat, will immensely increase. So self-mastery. So this is what, as Mother Sri Aurobindo talk about, integral yoga. So mastering ourselves, not being a slave of mind, life, and body, but being a master, conscious master of mind, life, and body. That is where I see, this is going. So imagine habit of hunger. And it's not that we are not, especially in India, we keep so many fasts. From time to time, fasting is recommended. And in general, also religiously, we keep so many fasts. And then we are not bothered, when we are doing a genuine, we believe in something and we are doing a fast for that. We all know that when we don't bother about hunger. How does that happen? While on the other days, if not for the proper meals, we go haywire. So it is actually the power of mind that we use there. That the mind has set an intention that no, this is very important for me and this is the penance that I'm going to do. So no hunger, is to be satiated today. How is that possible? We all do that. I'm sure all of us have touched upon that space of fasting. At times not happily, but at times with intention. And when we know with intention we do anything, then it works. So it's the manipulation in the mind that we do. So even the habit of hunger and thirst can be minimized. Right now, I am entangled. My part of my identity is associated so closely with the body that if the body is hungry, I also become restless. Oh my God, food, food, food. But when we know ourselves and identify ourselves more with the Purusha, with the divine consciousness slowly, gradually, first with witnessing consciousness, then we see it as something, as Sri Aurobindo was talking, the other day, something other. You see yourself as something other, and when there is something other who is hungry, then you can sustain more. It doesn't bother you that much then. Okay, hungry, yeah, we'll get some food later, like that. So more detachment from the body can come. Even the habit of hunger and thirst can be minimized. This we see, I don't know, with the example of Champak Lalji's life, that how he had no any set times of eating and sleeping, and he was just eating and sleeping whenever he used to get time. And similarly with diseases, he says that diseases can be minimized because the more one becomes conscious and keeps the temple clean, purified, sanctified, the need for disease disappears. Because most of the diseases, as we know, are psychosomatic in nature. The psyche is giving rise to diseases. But now, with the purification and sanctification, there is no need for the manifestation of the disease. So if a ripple happens, we become conscious of the ripple itself. It does not have to get blown into a full-blown disease and then only I get to know about it. A little bit of ripple and one becomes aware. So similarly, minimized and gradually eliminated. So that's also a possibility. And in the meantime, while this is happening, that the gradual elimination has not yet happened, in the meantime, the power of mind to set right the disorders of the body. So if something has happened in the being, we become conscious of the disharmony somewhere. As we were reading in Integral Healing, you set it right. You become conscious of it. You invoke stillness. You invoke absolute immobility there. You invoke power and force, mother's force and power. And through mind and through not wanting to indulge in the disease, the vital is not interested in getting ill. Usually the vital is very, very much interested in getting ill because it wants attention. We don't even know that the vital pokes, but it pokes. So that kind of poking is not there. So it's easier, relatively, maybe easier to get the thing back to a greater equilibrium. Whether by conscious manipulation of vital force. So I believe that this could also be referring to how through breath, prana, we can manipulate and set right something in the order which is out of order. It could be that also, conscious manipulation of the vital force, working with the energies in the body, or by simple mental fear, that exerting that mental power that we don't want to fall ill. No part of the being wants to fall ill. And I have seen often this time, I often have observed myself that when the body is falling ill, not the whole being is ready to say that, no, I don't want to fall ill. Some parts are resistant parts, and some parts enjoy that sickness. So that is what, if I become conscious of some parts, we don't know which parts are those, but if we become conscious of something which still wants to remain sick, then correcting it, and the whole body, mind, and feelings, there is nothing who wants to be sick. So that would be, I believe, would be mental fear. So that would immensely increase. Yeah. Anything here, anyone? Yeah. Anyone wants to share anything on what Snehi has asked? Why would my parts of being would want to be sick? Anyone experience that? That when you are sick, some parts want to be sick.
Yeah, I can share.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started reading this, just like it's fresh off the boat, this especially the physical part that we started, na. So while we were reading it, I had this curiosity that, oh my God, really, really? And within 2 to 3 hours, I strained my back and I've been on bed rest since. So, in general, this curiosity also, like we hear things, we wonder how they would happen. It could be how does that feel to how would I transcend it or how would I react to it. So, general curiosity, where up, like, even I would say, I feel that in experiences, if we hear about somebody going through a certain experience, we may just, have this thought, कि ये कैसे होता होगा? How does one go through something like so big? And, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the lane or sooner, you find yourself exactly there, but then you don't even remember that that thought or that curiosity came to you. So I think this sickness also, I think again, curiosity, basic, yeah, and sometimes how again we have read that there are other things, right? Like attention that one feels that okay, one doesn't feel it very consciously, but otherwise the attention that one gets also, especially in children, mother has spoken, right? That don't give them special attention if they are sick because then the being starts craving for it subconsciously. Yeah, so I think that's what coming to me. But otherwise, the more we are reading somehow, I'm feeling that it's not mental, like how mostly we understand things through the mind, through the mental being, and then we can put it into practice or something. Like here it feels that there's certain aspects which are beyond the mind. I mean, you can get an idea that, okay, this is probably how it would work. But when we are talking about putting it into practice, it's not black and white. It's not that, okay, it's not a recipe that add this and think this and believe this and that would happen. Like a lot of, I think, offering and this thing that not, I don't know how capable I am. I mean, I need to constantly ask for grace and Keshu, like help me stir in that direction, move in that direction because the more one is trying to get it, it feels the more it's evading me rather than. So the path seems to be different, which is good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, anyone else? Thank you, sir. Anyone else would like to share their experience of why one would want to be sick? So one was curiosity, as Saru was sharing that, how does that happen? Hmm? How can somebody get that? So when you are wondering how can somebody get that, then you also get that, so that how can somebody get that. So divine comedy. So I think that's a major part of it. And also, I think what you were sharing about getting attention. So as adults, we all are looking for love from people outside of us, wanting either we may admit it or not, but many a times we know that if we fall ill, we will be cared for. So many a times we don't even admit, we won't be able to admit that I fell ill because I wanted to be cared for. But that could be a major entanglement from the vital, not fully wanting to be well. Yes, yes, yeah. So that could be just expanding upon what Taru was sharing regarding attention. That if you are well, then everything is okay. But if you are unwell, you get some special attention. So let me get unwell because the person doesn't give me attention. So poor idea, not a very good idea. Yeah. So yeah, there must be more things also. And I think as we understand ourselves more closely, next time we are falling sick, we can look at ourselves and then see, what in me is wanting to be sick or what in me. No, and I think that this of course is a process that and also very enjoyable process if we take it as an experiment. Because when I'm sick and I see that why am I not getting up? Why am I not wanting to be well? Then I see these resistances in me, these attention seeking, things in me. And then if I have aspiration that no, I don't want to be here, because in past it may have served me. Childhood, growing up years, so far in my life, it may have served me, it may have done me some good. But right now, it just makes me more miserable. Why would I continue to be sick? So slowly we can actually give up. The whole being then can aspire to be well again. Is it not okay to want attention? Wow, that's a very good question, Snehi. Yeah. Yeah, just know that just like I am wanting attention, isn't everybody wanting just approval and attention? So what can many, many beggars give another beggar? Hardly anything. Everybody is seeking. Same thing as we are seeking because we feel disconnected from our true source. Hanji, sorry. Uday. So, yeah, so I think we can't fulfill each other. We have to just grow in our understanding slowly that haven't we been seeking from each other all through our life? What have we given each other? Still, the tummy remains unfulfilled because the thing is not designed that way. It is not designed in a way that we will get our completion from other people, no matter how much attention we may get. So if you are not yet convinced that yes, this is the design, because mother says that why would people turn to divine if everything is okay? Nobody would care. I am fulfilled in my partner is fulfilled in me. I will not even look at the world. So thank God for our unfulfilled relationship that we connect with the world. Otherwise, me and my family, four walls, little children, all happy together, fulfilled, completed in each other. So thank God that we don't get completed in each other because we can't. That's not the design. The only way we can get fulfillment is when we truly, truly get back to our source. That's the most kindest thing in relationships we can do. And then the relationships can be really true relationships. You are not wanting to feed like a parasite on the other person that you give me attention, you are responsible, to give me uh, what I want because you are my this or that. That's torture. That's not love. Because of movies and social media, we have confused torture with love, two extreme opposites. How can love be torture? And mother says that human love is a beautiful step in the ladder towards refined form of love, pure love. So we can do that. That if I see myself mixed up in my love, there is a drop of love and lots of wants, seeking attention, wanting this, that, that. So, and I know how much it makes me suffer, how much it makes the other person suffer. Can't I see that? I do see that. So this is my responsibility. I feel that if there is even a one little drop of pure love in that relationship, and if I want to use it as sadhana, I can actually remove all the impurity so that only non-sticky love remains, not torture. Because when we are seeking attention, we are really torturing the other person, poor guy or girl. Everybody has their own entanglements. On the top of it, I'll add another layer of cream, on the top. That, see, I am also there. Give me some. So can I be one drop of oasis in the desert rather than again a layer of desert? Desert means not the sweet dish desert, but the Dagestan desert. Yeah. So yes, I would really take inspiration from Mother and Sri Aurobindo and use the impure mixture of love to refine our love. That can happen. So by a similar process, the habit by which the bodily nature associates certain forms and degrees of activity. Oh, very, very beautiful again. With strain, fatigue. So we are, we are very manipulative. We don't even know how manipulative we are. So we have our set patterns. Like if I carry more than 2 kg, I won't be able to carry it. All of us know about this. We and our finickinesses. If I walking on steps, again I make myself weak and say that 3 floors okay, but beyond that I can't. That becomes fatigue for me, strain for me. Who has set these goals? Of course, me. Who has put the body in limitation? Also, a lot of fuel comes from me. So he says that it is habit. We have habituated the body to feel strained if it goes beyond 5 kg. Or for many of us, it could be sleep. If I don't sleep 2 hours, then I always remain nasty. So we take pride in talking about that. That see, I remain nasty if I don't sleep more than 2 hours. So this is what we put like a habit. By a similar process, the habit by which bodily nature associates certain forms and degrees of activity with strain, fatigue, incapacity can be rectified, and the power, freedom, swiftness, effectiveness of the work, whether physical or mental, which can be done with this bodily instrument, marvelously increased, doubled, tripled, decupled. This I have really, I mean, this is, I'm sure all of us must have some experiences or others that when we are really loving somebody, when we want to, do work for someone we love and care for, all our incapacities go away. It doesn't matter. Why? Because we want to care, we want to love. Haven't you seen that? But when we have to do something for people who we may not have full agreement with, then things happen that, oh, हमसे ना हो पाएगा. Right? So we are very dual beings, like so many beings live in this being. For some, I am this, and for some, I am that. So he says that if we actually can overpower all our limitations that we associate with that, okay, this is my limit, that is my limit, this I can't do, that I can't do. So many limits we put ourselves into. Oh, 5:30 in the morning, no, that I can't get up. Oh, 10:30 at night, no, I'm asleep by that time. We all do that. We keep many a times, funny thing just to share here. Many a times we have manipulated session timings for people who requested that, this time I can't make it, so please make it this time. And when we did that, actually the person even then doesn't come. We were in a mist that what's the point, I mean, to change. So why not keep the thing, whatever suits us. So it's really funny how we manipulate ourselves, but we don't even admit that we are. And while we have also seen other things, extreme things we have seen, if somebody has a shadi, If somebody has to attend a very, people are very excited about shadis and, marriage, weddings and all other functions, all our needs goes away, you know, all our bodily limitation of cold goes away if you see weddings in North India, here, Delhi and around. So people are wearing cut sleeves when it is 10 degrees or lesser in Delhi. How is that possible? But it is possible. So yeah, I think it's really pretty interesting how we fool ourselves and how we can stop fooling ourselves and maximize our capacities for good work. So anything here? Anyone?
Yeah, I don't know if this would add or not, but you know how this talks about, the strain, fatigue, incapacity. Like first I experience something, right? Like say you were talking about can't walk more than that or can't carry that much weight. It's like if I carry that much weight and when I am back, I see I've strained something. Next time again, if I have some experience and I come and again I see that, okay, I feel tired. So by probably the third time, I don't even question it. Like, and mostly rather than trying to increase my capacity to carry, I just say that no, this is my limit, and this is me standing up for myself, sadly, and I limit myself and I say that, okay, this is all I can do. And I believe in it myself, right? Like, that's the saddest part. And that's it. That's my category. That's my limit set. And it feels very logical. Again, I was talking about the mental thing here, that it feels that yes, that makes sense, right? I did it once, I did it twice, maybe I did it three times, and I see that I cannot do more than this. And that is considered intelligence. And then everybody I see, especially, in our families, then they also say that, yes, absolutely right. And when you know your limit, why would you want to go beyond it, right? Like that's where we are pushed also, that that's the right way. Obviously, if you're not wanting to strengthen, then that is the right way too, because nobody likes people to get sick, and that's not necessarily a bad advice. But there are other ways to transcend or increase our limits, and yet that's how we define ourselves. And yeah, so I don't know.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, anyone else? Suddenly my complexion just got brighter. I don't know how. Some light effect. Yeah. Anyone? Oh, sorry. So maybe we can take, what do you suggest? Shall we take this next paragraph also? It's not a big one. Or shall we stop here itself?
I think we
Yeah.
can at least read. We still have a few minutes.
Okay. So would you like to read?
Yeah. This side of the method belongs properly to the yoga of self-perfection, but it is as well to speak briefly of these things here, both because we thereby lay a basis for what we shall have to say of self-perfection, which is a part of the integral yoga, and because we have to correct the false notions popularized by materialistic science. According to the science, the normal mental and physical states and the relations between mind and body actually established by our past evolution are the right, natural, and healthy conditions, and anything opposite to them is either morbid and wrong or a hallucination, self-deception, and insanity. Needless to say, this conservative principle is entirely ignored by science itself when it so diligently and successfully improves on the normal operations of physical nature for the greater mastery of nature by man. Suffice it to say here, once for all, that a change of mental and physical state and of relations between the mind and body, which increases the purity and freedom of the being, brings a clear joy and peace and multiplies the power of the mind over itself and over the physical functions, brings about, in a word, man's greater mastery of his own nature, is obviously not morbid and cannot be considered a hallucination or self-deception, since its effects are patent and positive. In fact, it is simply a willed advance of nature in her evolution of the individual, an evolution which she will carry out in any case, but in which she chooses to utilize the human will as her chief agent, because her essential aim is to lead the Purusha to conscious mastery over herself.
Thank you. So I think it was already becoming a little obvious that what we are reading about is about mastering ourselves, gaining some control and mastery, and perfection in oneself. So this side of method, what was being shared, elaborated upon, belongs properly to the yoga of self-perfection. But it is as well to speak briefly of these things here, both because we thereby lay a basis for what we shall have to say of self-perfection, which is a part of integral yoga, and because we have to correct the false notions popularized by material science. Now he talks about that. According to this science, the normal mental and physical states and the relations between mind and body. So, how do we usually live? We satisfy our desires. If we are feeling incomplete, we consume. So this is very normal. This is considered normal, and that those people who are trying to maybe control some bit here and there, actually we many a times mock them as तू तो साधु हो गया, तू तो बड़ा साधु type इंसान हो गया. And it's not in like respect that we are saying that you are the sadhu. We are saying that like ये तो साधु हो गया, like hopeless fellow. So according to this science, the normal mental and physical states and relations between mind and body actually established by our past evolution. So far how it has been happening, that is how it has to continue happen. Otherwise you are the black sheep, for example, right? So satiate your desires, have more desires so that you can consume, you can shop. Just giving some examples with which we can relate. And these are right, natural and healthy conditions, and anything other. So anything, now this we very commonly see that if we now, we may have done many social engagements earlier, and we may have attended many weddings and even danced madly at those weddings and drunk enough. But now we don't want to do that. Okay? So maybe that phase is over. So people don't see it in a way like it's a process of evolution. We see it in a way that what is wrong with that fellow? Why is he not drinking? Why is he not interested in shopping? So anything other opposite to them is either morbid, and I have heard this many times actually, that what has happened to you, you have become so dull just because one doesn't shop or may not do what usually socially is wanted all around. Either morbid, depressive, people find it very depressive, and wrong, or a hallucination, self-deception and insanity. Needless to say, this conservative principle is entirely ignored by science itself when it so diligently and successfully improves on the normal operations of physical nature for the greater mastery of nature by man. So we see it everywhere. Wind power, hydroelectric power. What are we doing? Making computers which are very slim, thin, hardly to be seen, but they are computers. So although we perfect the material nature, we try to harness the powers of nature by making dams and making hydroelectric power, solar power. So on one hand, says that it is entirely ignored when it so diligently and successfully improves. It's not that it's not perfecting; it is trying to perfect, improves on the normal operations of physical nature for the greater mastery of nature by man. So all the time, scientists are trying to extend life. How can we extend life? Vitamin E for glowing skin, and all kind of things we are devising all the time so that man can have mastery over nature. While on the other hand, how can science ignore this mastery of mind on the body? So suffice it to say here, once for all, that a change of mental and physical state, what we had been discussing, reflecting upon, and of relation between the body and mind, so that mind exerts a power over the body. And that, again, we have heard of people who have, without any sweater, have stayed in cold by just generating their body heat. It's not uncommon. We have seen people who can hold their breath so long that deep in the ocean they are meditating, in Buddha lotus position, and they are not breathing for a very long time. People, yogis who can stop their heartbeat at will, then recover themselves. So again, we are mastering our own self. So this change of mental and physical state and of relations between mind and body, which increases the purity and freedom of the being. Now, I am clear, that I don't have to depend on proper meals and proper thirst quenched. I'm okay. So the dependency on all the outer things is lesser and lesser. So it's freedom. Purity and freedom of the being brings a clear joy and peace and multiplies the power of the mind, because you realize that, wow, the power is with us all the time. That divine which we invoke is not somewhere out there. As mother, we read in Savitri that mother, when she saw the creation plunging down into darkness, what did she do? She put her own peace in the depth of our heart, a portion of our own self. So that mother that we keep invoking out there, as mother herself has said, in here, that's what we are trying to invoke, invoking the Godhead within. making concrete the divine presence within. But without purity, it cannot be concretized. So purity has to be there, just like in our temples, we keep it sanctified if we want to install there the divine presence. So purity and freedom of the being brings a clear joy and peace and multiplies the power of the mind over itself. So when I'm seeking attention, when I get attention, of course, joyful. But when I don't get attention, I'm disappointed. So who am I? Just a puppet of external triggers. But right now, the state of being that I am harnessing, that brings me joy for no reason. Or one can say joy because one is having certain mastery over the outer, so-called outer thoughts, feelings, sensations. So it brings a clear joy and peace and multiplies the power of the mind over itself and over the physical functions, brings about, in a word, man's greater mastery of his own nature. So what we have been trying unknowingly, unconsciously, is to actually be master of our own self. But how we begin is to master the outward nature. The deepest intention is to self-perfect ourselves. But how we start, since all the doors of the senses, go outward, and it is perceived as it is something out there. So how I begin is by beginning to harness wind power, thermal power, solar power, creating gadgets and instruments which are super computer-like. But what I am deeply intending is to be master of my own nature. And that nature and this nature are one. So ultimately, I will come back to this one also. Is obviously not morbid and cannot be considered a hallucination or self-deception, since its effects are patent and positive. We all know, even the research science now acknowledges the uh, effect of meditative experiences on brain. Very simply, people who have been meditating continuously, people who have, or masters or yogis, or people who have not been meditating, all of them have been studied parallelly in experiments under MRI scans, electrical EEG, they call. And they see that when I'm not a meditator, when I'm not taming my mind, then the moment the pain stimulus is given, even before that, the mind starts imagining the pain. And then when the pain stimulus is removed, the mind continues to ruminate over the pain. So I am the one extending my pain just because the mind is out of my control. While in case of meditators, when the pain stimulus is coming, nothing happening. When it comes, pinch, you see something in the brain. And then when it goes, gone, back to ease again. There is no regurgitation of experiences. So totally, fully here and now. So we all know this. More and more science is telling us this. So patent and positive. In fact, it is simply a willed advance of nature. And then he discloses that this is what actually has to happen, where Mother says in prayers and meditations that the divine victory is certain. This is how it is certain, that nature also is moving in that direction only. So in fact, it is simply a willed advance of nature in her evolution of the individual, an evolution which she will carry out in any case, but in which she chooses to utilize the human will, because we have a conscious will which can step back from non-beneficial things and create new beneficial patterns. So it utilizes the human will as her chief agent because her essential aim is to lead the Purusha to conscious mastery over herself. So Prakriti also is wanting that the Purusha becomes consciously, like knowingly, the master of Prakriti, not supernumerary anymore. It becomes conscious of itself as the king. So that's where it all is going. Yeah. So any last thoughts? Anyone? Any last comments? Okay. So if not anything, let's call it a day here. We have enough substance for contemplation and reflection. Thank you. Yes.
Thank
So
you.
just taking,
Thank
thank
you,
you. Just
Monica.
taking, let's take one last moment before we leave. If those of us who can stay, those of us who have to leave may leave, please. Thank you for joining. So just taking one last moment to dedicate our merit of collective reflection, understanding, sharing all this merit with all the sentient beings. May our hearts be peaceful, content, and may we have lots of joy and progress in life. Yes, thank you for your patience. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye
so
bye.
much. A beautiful session. Thank you.
Thank you.